let's imagine this is my S3 bucket. Okay, this is my bucket. Now, what's a bucket, by the way? Bucket is a fundamental container. It's a fundamental container. Container means that it can contain your data, right? And any piece of data that you put in that bucket is called an object. For example, this is my data. This is my object. Now, what's an object, by the way? It's a fundamental entity. What is that? It's a fundamental entity. Okay. Now, so you put the object into the bucket. Now, what happens is that to give you so what the claim is that we give you 11 nines the durability. What do you mean by that? 11 nines durability means it is 99.9999 up to 11 9% of the durability. This means that there are very less chances that you will lose any object. Very less chances. Now, why it is so? And how they work behind the scenes. For example, you put this object X over here. It gets multiplied. Multiple copies. So by default, they create multiple copies of the same data or the object because the bucket is specific to the region. This thing you have to understand. The bucket is specific to the region. Now, by default, it creates multiple copies of the same object and stores across the servers in different AZs in a single region. I repeat, because in the region we have the AZs, it creates multiple copies of the same object and stores those copies into multiple AZs across multiple AZs in the same region. So this enhances the durability of your data. Hence, it says that it is 11 9. It will give you the 11 nines the durability. Okay. Now, the next thing that we will discuss about is that how exactly this goes on. Or we'll discuss the basic fundamentals and we'll just go straight away for 45 minutes and I just take the questions afterwards. Fine. So let's discuss this thing. Let's understand exactly that how this works for us. See, let's imagine. So this is my same bucket. This is the same bucket. Now you can stuff in as much data as you can into the bucket. So the amount of data that you can put into the bucket is infinite. The amount of data that you put into the bucket is infinite. There's no limit as to how much data you can stuff into the bucket. You can put in the unlimited number of objects and the unlimited number of objects or the unlimited amount of data you can put in the bucket. You can put in as much data as you can into the bucket. There's no limit to that. There's no limit to that. However, what they claim and they say to you is that the size of a single object, for example, this is my object X, should not exceed more than 5 terabytes in size. Now, what's an object, by the way? It can be a single document, a single presentation slide, a single spreadsheet, a single text document, a single video file, a single audio file. So the size of a single object should not exceed more than 5 terabytes in size. If that's the case, you split that file into multiple subfiles or multiple objects, and then you upload them one by one. I'm not talking about the folder. I'm talking about a single object, single piece of data. It's not a folder. I'm not talking about the folder over here. This doesn't apply to the folder. This applies to a single piece of data. It can be a spreadsheet, a Word document, a presentation, an image, a video file, a single piece of data. So the size of a single piece of data should not exceed more than 5 terabytes. Okay. So what's the crux or what's the So if I just recapitulate the entire stuff, in a bucket, you can put in as much data as you can. There's absolutely no limit. However, the amount of data, the single piece of data, the size of it should not exceed more than 5 terabytes in size. Okay. So these two things are very important from the exam point of view because the questions are being asked. Second thing is that I would say this is the third point. There's a first point that you can put in as much data as you can. Then the second point is that the size of a single object should not exceed more than 5 terabytes in size. The third thing is that in a free tier account, so I'm only talking about the free tier right now. This third point only applies to free tier. You get 5 GB per month of S3 storage for free of cost. This is free. Okay, this is free of cost. You get 5 GB storage per month for free in a free tier account. Okay, and this the fourth point that I'm telling you is it applies to every account or any account. So you can have any account type, a business or a free tier. You have the limit. So you have the limit to have up to 100 buckets per account. 100 buckets. I'm sorry. So you have the limit to have up to 100 buckets per account. Okay. So there's a limit to have up to 100 buckets per account. So this thing is very, very important for you to remember and make sure that you grasp these points because you get 1 or 2 questions in the exam from these 4 points for sure. First point, let me just come to you once again. Reiterate. First thing first, you can put in as much data as you can into the bucket. There's no limit. However, the size of a single object that you want to put into the bucket should not exceed more than 5 terabytes in size. Then, in a free tier account, you get 5 GB storage for free each month. And for any account, whether it's a business or free tier, you can have up to 100 buckets created per account. At any given point of time, you can have up to 100 buckets. Fine. So these are some of the important limitations and I would say features of the bucket. So what's a bucket? It's a container, and you put the object, which is the fundamental entity, and you get the 1190 durability. And these are some of the features that I've discussed with you. Fine. Now let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and create a bucket. So I just open my AWS Management console real quick. Let me just sign in from scratch, and I will show you exactly that how the buckets are being created and how they're being managed. See, the thing is that if you talk about the creation of the bucket, you have to follow certain guidelines and protocols. So I will make sure that we discuss all the protocols and the guidelines one by one. And because these things are very important for you to understand from the exam point of view and also from the operations point of view. So let me sign in, and afterwards I can just start with the concepts. So just give me a few seconds. Okay, so I just signed in. I go to the S3. Now you can find S3 under storage, right? I just go over there. Once I go to the this S3, you can see that there are multiple buckets already being showing up on my dashboard. They're already showing up. Now let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and create a bucket. So I click on create bucket right now on the top left hand corner. See, one thing that's very important is that whether it's for the IAM or it's same for the bucket, if you see on the top, once you go to the S3 dashboard or IAM dashboard, there's one common thing you will see. That is at the top right hand corner. If I just expand it, or let me just take the cursor over there, it says global. Can you see that? It says global. Now, why it says global, by the way? Actually, I'm not able to expand the top right-hand corner of this page. So you can see global. Why it says global? See, S3 is a global service. This means that on this page, I can access the buckets that belong to separate regions. Can you see that? I have the bucket names over on the left-hand side of this page, and I have these regions on the right-hand side. So on the same page, on the same page, I can access the buckets that belong to separate regions. I can do that. Fine. Now let's do one thing. Let's click on create bucket on the top, and immediately you will see one thing. It says enter DNS compliant bucket name. What is this? See, the thing is that whenever you create a bucket, you have to follow certain guidelines. Now, yesterday when I was showing you the IAM stuff, I didn't focus upon that because it would have deviated us from the main subject. So right now, there are a few things you have to understand before you can enter a DNS compliant bucket name. And also, I've seen an exam, they will ask a question from these important points. Okay, even though they're very basic, they sound basic, but still they're very important for you to clear the exam. So the thing is that, what do you mean by DNS compliant bucket name? So let's understand this point. So if I say DNS compliant bucket name, I have to follow certain guidelines. First one is that the bucket name should be unique in nature. This means that no two buckets, irrespective of the account and the region, they can't have the same names. It's like no two people will have the same Gmail accounts. No two people will have the same Facebook login IDs. No two people will have the same Yahoo email accounts or the IDs. Okay, so the bucket name is unique across all the accounts and the regions. So hence, no two buckets can have the same name. Second thing is that it is lowercase only, no caps allowed, no uppercase, only lowercase. Third thing is that it can be alphanumeric. So it can be alphanumeric. It can be combination of the alphabets and numbers. Fourth point, there's no other special characters allowed. So only two special symbols, or I would say characters, that are allowed. Those characters are hyphen and dot. These are the only two special symbols that are allowed. Otherwise, they don't allow any special symbol like for example, asterisk or maybe dollar, hashtag. No, they're not allowed. Only two special characters allowed, hyphen and dot. And they should be in the middle of the names. So these special characters should be in the middle of the name. So these are two special characters allowed, hyphen and dot. They should be the middle of the name. Fine. And the length is, so it should be between 3 to 63 characters long. 3 to 63 characters long. Okay, so these are the 5 points that you have to remember. First point is that it should be unique in nature. This means that no two buckets across multiple accounts and regions can have the same bucket name. It's like no two people will have the same Gmail accounts or Gmail IDs. Everything should be lowercase, no uppercase allowed. It can be alphanumeric. Only two special symbols allowed, hyphen and dot, and they should be in the middle of the name. And you can allow between 3 to 63 characters. Okay, so these are some of the important things that you have to keep in mind. Now I'll just go back to this page. That is my dashboard, AWS Management Console on the S3 dashboard. And the very first thing is that I just type a very common name, test, and just hit create. Now immediately it will pop me an error message. The bucket name already exists because it's a very common name that someone has taken before. So I have to think of any bucket name and ensure that that bucket name doesn't exist. So I can type in project Alpha S3 Mumbai. Now I assume that this is a unique name. No one has taken it before. So I will go with this one. Why I've labeled as Mumbai? So that I can recognize that very soon or immediately that this exists in this region. I choose my region as Mumbai. So the buckets that you create are constrained in a region. This thing you have to understand. The bucket names that you create are constrained in a single region. So it is extremely important for you to understand that anything that you put in the bucket will be contained in that region automatically. It will not by default bypass the boundaries of that region. So anything that I put in this bucket will be constrained and contained in that particular region. Now I can just copy the settings from an existing bucket. It's not needed as of now. I have right now almost 12 buckets. I can just copy over the settings from any one of those 12, I would say. But I think it's not important for me to copy over any of the existing settings. Now, the thing is that once you define the bucket name, once you define the region, you just go ahead and hit next. Okay, it already exists. Someone may has taken. I think maybe any one of you may have taken this thing. I'm not sure. It's made as Project Gamma. Okay. Now the thing is that I click on next. The next thing it will ask you is the versioning, server access logging. Now we can, these are the properties. We can change these properties afterwards. They are not needed as of now. Also, we have something called management and below downwards. It's not needed. We can just go for some advanced settings. They are not needed at this point of time. We click on next. Then we have to define the permissions. Okay. Now, it's a new setting. See, the thing is that by default, any bucket you create will block all public access. By default, it checks marks all public access. Now, the lab session that I will show you, there are a few scenarios where I need to share the content of the objects of the bucket to the public. For example, I'll be enabling the static website hosting. I'll be sharing the objects using one of the links. So I'm going to uncheck this option so that it doesn't restrict the scenarios where I might need to host the static website upon the bucket or share the objects with you. So I'm going to uncheck this option. Click on next over here. Click create bucket. Fine. So as of now, my bucket has been created. If I hit refresh and I can just go with did created, Project Gamma S3 Mumbai is being created. It's being created right now. Now, guess one thing, it's very important. Please don't follow the same steps right now because it will deviate your focus from the main concept. So just see the things right now. Don't create any bucket as of now. Don't try the things out. You get confused. So see the concepts You have enough time after the session to practice on your own. Okay. So this is how exactly you create a bucket. It's not a rocket science, easy thing, very easy thing for you to do. Now I'll just click on this bucket name, and as if now this bucket is empty, I can just go ahead and start uploading some objects to it. So what's an object? Is a data. So I click upload and click on add files. So if you're using Google Chrome or Firefox, you can just drag and drop. On Safari, I don't think it will allow us to do that. I can just give a shot, but I don't think it will just allow me to drag and drop on Safari. I'm not sure because maybe they have changed this settings. So I just go ahead and just look for some of the images that's saved on my computer, and I can just try to make sure that I can just drag and drop some images right now. So here I have some wallpapers. So these are 7 to 8 wallpapers. I can select all of them and just try to drag and drop. Okay, it's working on Safari as well. So I just dragged and dropped those 8 items, or else I would have clicked on upload and selected all of them, and I would have selected all of them. But I think drag and drop is much more easier and convenient. So I will not click on next over here. I will not change any of the settings. Click on upload right now, and this will upload all the 7 to 8 images right now, the wallpapers. So as you can see that it's being done. Immediately, within few seconds, it uploaded my objects. It depends upon the speed of the internet and the distance between you and the bucket. So I'm in Delhi, the bucket is in Mumbai. So I think it's not that much large distance where it may induce lag or latency. So as of now, as you can see that the bucket is being created, I've uploaded some of the objects to the bucket. Let's do one thing. Let's go to the bucket. I choose this bucket right now, and not bucket, I'm sorry. I choose this object. Then I click on this object right now, and as if now you will see that this object is I can see the owner. This is my canonical ID. We'll discuss it afterwards. Last modified date and time. An E tag that's unique for every object. Storage class we'll discuss afterwards. I can open this from here. I can click on download. I can download a copy of this object back to my computer. You can see that it got downloaded. This is a wallpaper. Okay. Now there's a thing called make public. As if now every content of this bucket is private in nature. Every content, every object that I upload to this bucket is private in nature. Okay, it's private. I can share this link. I can share this link with the public or the internet users so that they can access it on their own. But the thing is that if I just copy this link right now, let's copy this link, and I just open this in some other tab, you will see that it says access denied. So I have to go to the S3 dashboard, click on make public. It's a success. Now if I just hit refresh, I should be able to download or access this object via the public URL. So if I share this link with any one of you, you can easily access this object without any issues, because this is a public object now. This is a public object. Fine. So it's a very easy process. Nothing much to discuss about. The main thing that we'll discuss about is the properties of the S3 bucket. So I go back to the S3 dashboard and I just click on the bucket that we just created, and I go to the properties of the bucket. Now, from this course perspective, we will discuss the following options. Versioning. Okay, before we discuss properties, let's do one thing. Let's go to permissions. We'll just discuss properties afterwards. First of all, I straight away go to the permissions. I straight away go to the permissions. We'll discuss properties afterwards. So in the permissions, we discuss the first three options: public access, access control list, bucket policy. There's also cross origin resource sharing. It's only used for the development of the web applications. It's not in the scope of this course. If you just go through the developer associate program, then we discuss that. So we'll discuss the first three permissions: block public access, access control list, and the bucket policy. Now this block public access is the same thing that if you remember, I unchecked the option in the process of creating the bucket so that I might make the content of the buckets public in nature. If I click on this option, then in that case, I will just block the public access. Okay. Right now it is set to off because I may need to make the contents public in nature. Then the thing is that we have this thing called access control list. These two things we're going to focus upon it right now. These are very, very important, especially the bucket policy. Because in the bucket policy, we use the same JSON documents or the concept to apply the permissions for the bucket. So I go to the access control list over here. Now, under the access control list, the very first thing it shows me is your AWS account owner. So I'm the owner of this bucket. And being the owner, I have all the permissions. I can list the objects. I can write them, the objects. I can read the bucket permissions. I can structure or manufacture or write the bucket permissions. I have every permission. Fine, because I'm the owner. I can also share this bucket with any other account owner. I repeat my statement. I can share this bucket with any other account owner. I can do it. So the thing is how you go about doing that. Now this is a very good feature. You can share the bucket across two different accounts if you want. So I click on add account. Now immediately it will ask me for the canonical ID or an email address of that account. So I can give a shot regarding the email address. I'm not sure it works perfectly or not. So if I just try to include one of my email addresses of the other account, I suppose it should work. Let's do that. Click on, now these are the permissions. These are the permissions. I include all the permissions right now. Okay. I hit save. I think it doesn't accept the email that much. Let's do one thing. Let's define the canonical ID. Okay, because email, I don't think it will accept it. Even if it says email address, it doesn't accept that quite often. So the thing is that I have to mention the canonical ID of the other account. You may say that, what is canonical ID? On your account, you can very well find that. Let me do one thing. I'll show you that how you find the canonical ID. Let's do one thing. So I open my separate account. So what I will do is that I'm gonna just drag and drop my other browser. That's my Google Chrome. And let's do one thing. Let's open my secondary account. There's a separate account. This is a separate account, not the one that I'm using right now. So I open my AWS Management Console in front of you. I click on, let's type in my email address. Click on next. Okay. Now the thing is that this is my secondary account. Now to get the canonical ID of this secondary account, I just click on the top right hand corner, click on my security credentials. Okay, this will just take us to the same IAM dashboard. Fine, so let's go there. It will pop up a notification kind of stuff. Click on continue. Now under your security credentials page, there's a last option which says account identifiers. Go over there, and this is your account ID, and this is your canonical user ID. Okay, so this is a unique ID for your account. So I just copy this from my secondary account, go back to my primary account now. So I'm going to go back to my primary account and paste this over there. Okay, and I will just choose all the permissions and click on save. And then I can share the bucket with a separate account. Now, the thing is that this doesn't mean that if I just go back to my, secondary account, go to the services, go to S3, you will see that the bucket will not show up over there. The bucket that I've just shared will not show up. I shared the bucket Project Gamma S3 Mumbai. Can you see the name on the top? Right? But it will not show up over there. It will not show up in my secondary account. So the secondary account has to use some third-party software, or the CLI. That secondary account has to use the access keys to access my bucket. Okay. See, we haven't discussed the CLI as if now. We'll discuss it afterwards. Okay. So the thing is that you can share the bucket with some other account, but that other account has to use some APIs, some third-party softwares, or CLI to access this bucket. Because the bucket will not show up on the secondary account dashboard. Okay. The second thing is the public access. The public access. You can also you have the privilege to make the bucket public in nature, but generally it is not recommended because you have the ability to make the objects public. So there's no need to make the bucket public in nature, but you have the option. The last thing that we have is called the S3 log delivery group. Now, what is this thing? See, there is an option on the properties. If I just go to properties right now, there's an option called server access logging. This logging is a service over here that will help you, if I show you, set up access logs that will give you details about the access requests. It will capture and save the logs to give you the detailed overview that what type of requests are being made to your S3 bucket, so that you can track that what are the operations, what type of activities are being triggered to your S3 bucket. It is used for troubleshooting, for analytics. Fine. So if I go to server access logging, click on enable. It will ask me that where, so my bucket is Project Gamma S3 Mumbai. It will immediately ask me that what's the target bucket? What's the target bucket? I will choose the same bucket. Target prefix. This means that in which folder these logs will be saved and captured. So just type in, for example, logs /. So it will create a folder named as logs where all my server access logs will be captured. So it will capture the logs for each request that's being made to the S3 bucket. Okay. If I hit save right now, you will see that it is enabled. It's enabled right now. And if I go to the permissions and go to access control list, scroll down, you will see that it automatically allows the log delivery as a service to write the objects and read the bucket permissions. Can you see that? Because in order for the logging service to work effectively, it automatically gives these two permissions to the service. That's the server access logging. Now you have to be cautious enough to understand one important fact. Server access logging is free of cost. But the thing is that you are being charged for the amount of data you save in the S3 bucket. And in a free tier account, you get only 5 GB of data per month. If you don't turn it off, you will exceed that 5 GB limit. 5 GB limit that you get per month. So to be on safer side, just disable that. Otherwise, you have to pay for the amount of storage or the logs being saved to the SD bucket, because you get only 5 GB, and if you turn it on, you will exceed 5 GB of logs being delivered. In that case, you have to pay for that. Okay, so under the properties, we discuss three main stuff: the owner permissions. I can share the bucket with some other account, and also I can enable this for the server access logging. Now, access control list is somewhere a good option to define the restrictions to the bucket. See, why you're applying these restrictions? Because a bucket will hold your confidential data as well. Your backup data, your database data, your confidential data. So you want the bucket to be as secure as possible. You don't want the bucket to be accessed by some unauthorized users, whether those users are internal or external. So because it may store some confidential data, you have to make sure that the bucket should be accessed only by the people who should access it. Now, the next very effective strategy to secure your bucket is the bucket policy. See, what is that? So the main purpose of the bucket policy is that you can make use of the JSON documents. You can make use of the JSON policies in a way that you can implement those JSON documents, and those JSON documents can apply the restrictions to the bucket. Okay. Now you can make use of the same editors, but this time we have to click on the following option. So let me show you. So if I just go underneath, can you see this option at the bottom? We have this policy generator. I click on this policy generator right now. Policy generator, and immediately it will open up a page from where I can generate a JSON policy and apply that to the S3 bucket. So what I will do is that the very first thing is that I have to select the policy type. So the policy type I'll choose would be the S3 bucket policy. This is the policy type I'll choose because we are creating a bucket policy right now. So hence I choose the S3 bucket policy. Now in the step 2, I have to add the statement. Now what's a statement? A statement is a formal description of a single permission. A statement is the formal description of a single permission. So each statement depicts or represents a permission. Now there are two types of permissions under effect. Either through that permission you want to allow access to some resources, or you want to deny access to some resources. So in my case, I choose deny. In my case, what I will choose? Deny. In the principle, I choose asterisk. What is asterisk? This means that this policy will be applied to every object of the bucket. If you want to apply the policy on a folder in the S3 bucket or a particular object, you can type the name of it. And then you can use comma to separate multiple values and define multiple objects. But in my case, I'm going to make it simple and choose asterisk so that this policy would be applicable to each and every object of the S3 bucket. Then in the next statement, I will choose a service. It's already chosen S3. I don't have to go with that. Then I have to choose actions. Now these are multiple actions. For example, create bucket, delete object, get bucket ACL, get bucket policy, get bucket tagging. These are multiple actions. List my buckets, list all my buckets. Fine. Put buckets, put objects. These are multiple actions. You don't have to go into these actions as of now. So the main action that I would like to block or deny is the one that is the delete object. So if I just go on the top, I want to restrict the action that's the delete object, so that No one, including myself. So since I'm the owner, it will also restrict me to delete any of the objects from the bucket. So I've chosen only one action, delete object. Okay. I go back right now and this action is being selected. The next thing is that you have to choose a bucket ARN. ARN stands for Amazon Resource Name. To get that, I go back to the bucket, this bucket policy editor, and you can find the ARN on the top. This is the ARN. I'm going to copy it from there. I just go back to this page and paste it. Now, to complete the statement, what you have to do is, now I'm not able to expand this entire stuff. Just give me a few seconds if I can do it. So what I will do is that I include a / followed by an asterisk. So let me just show you that on the text document, how this looks like. So if I just open the text document real quick. So this is how it should look like. So there's a bucket name followed by a / and asterisk. This will complete the statement. There's the bucket ARN, Amazon Resource Name, and to complete the statement, a / followed by an asterisk. I copy this entire stuff once again. I think it's already being copied over. It's already being showing up over there. It's already being described. So if I just go over there, you will see that it's being there. So I click on add statement. So I can add as many statements as we can into this bucket. So as of now, it's been done. I go ahead and click on generate policy. It spits out a JSON policy for me. I copy this policy right now, click close, go back to the editor and paste it and click save. Now this will be applied with immediate effect. I go to the overview and just try to delete any of the two things. I choose, for example, okay, let me just go back once again. I go back to the bucket. I choose the last object, go to actions and click on delete. Click delete once again. You will see that it has popped up an error message. And I click on view details at the bottom. It says access denied. Access denied. Okay. It says access denied. So even me as a bucket owner, I don't have the privilege to delete anything from the bucket. If I have to do that, the only thing I need to do is that I have to remove the bucket policy. I have to delete it. So the bucket policy is very effective because you get a more precise control upon the bucket actions. Okay. So these are the two main options you choose to define the bucket permissions. So the next thing we'll discuss about the stuff. So we have discussed the permissions. The next thing that we'll discuss would be the properties. From this course perspective, we'll discuss the following properties: versioning, server access logging. We already discussed that. We'll discuss the static website hosting. Okay. We will not discuss the object level logging because it's a part of CloudTrail, which we'll discuss afterwards. We'll discuss the encryption in a brief because KMS is a separate service. We'll discuss that afterwards, but I'll just give you the overview of that. Then we'll discuss the tags and transfer exploration. Okay, so these are things we'll discuss on this properties page from this course perspective. I start with the versioning first. Now, what is versioning? Versioning means that you have the ability to store multiple versions of the same object. It works like GitHub. It can be used as a distributed version control system. Okay, so by default, it's disabled. I can enable it right now and click save. Now you can enable it or suspend it. Once it's enabled, it can't be disabled. So you enable the versioning right now, and once you enable the versioning, you have the ability to store multiple versions of the same object in the same bucket. Now, this would be applied to every object from now onwards. Anything that you put in the S2 bucket from now onwards would show up in the S2 bucket. So the thing is, if I just go to the overview, you will see that there's a new thing showing up: versions hide and show. Can you see that? Previously, this option was not there. Previously, this option was not there. Okay. So the thing is, how to go about using this option. So from now onwards, anything that I put in the S3 bucket, it will just maintain multiple versions of the same object. Let's do one thing. I click upload, click on add files, and I choose any of the files right now. Let me choose, let's imagine, let me choose this. Let me go to my downloads. I choose the CSV file credentials-3.csv. Okay. I click upload. It's uploaded. I uploaded 4 more times. So I just uploaded the second time. I uploaded the third time. Let's do it the third time right now. The fourth time. And the fifth time. Right? So as of now, I have uploaded the same object 5 times. I've uploaded the same object 5 times. Now, if you just go to the show mode and scroll down, you will see that it will show you the 5 versions of the same object. And this is the latest version, which is the current version, and you can see the timestamps that are applied to every single object. So I just take a scenario right now. Might be you're using this S3 bucket as a shared drive, and you share the S3 bucket with different people in your team. Now the thing is that shared drive has a spreadsheet, and by mistake someone has overwritten that spreadsheet with some corrupted data. So you can just, for example, at 11 p.m. that spreadsheet was overwritten with some irrelevant data. You can go back to any of the previous dates and you can restore the spreadsheet from there. Or might be, for example, in the hide mode, someone has deleted that spreadsheet by mistake. You want to recover that. So, okay, first of all, if I just go to the permissions, I have to just delete the bucket policy, which will restrict my delete access. Okay, so I just try to delete one of the same object right now. Okay, let me see that it's been deleted now. Bucket policy. Yep, let me just do it one more time. So it's gone, right? So I've just deleted my object. Now, the thing is, once I go to the show mode, I can easily retrieve it. It puts a delete marker on that object. If I just delete this delete marker, I'm able to restore the object. If I just go to the hide mode, I can restore that object. I go to the show mode, I can retrieve any version of the object. So the purpose of the versioning is that I can retrieve the objects from any of the previous dates or any of the timestamps. And this is a useful feature that will help you to retrieve and get the objects in case of accidental deletions and overwrites. So for example, if I overwrite some spreadsheet and it has to be, I have to go back to the previous dates to get back the exact version of that spreadsheet, I can do that. I can, for example, I can go to this version and I can download it. Okay, I've just downloaded this version of this spreadsheet. Or I can just go to the hide mode. If I accidentally delete this object, That's fine. I can just go to show mode. I can retrieve any one of these versions, or I just delete the delete marker so that I can retrieve the object back to my S3 bucket like this. Okay. So versioning is helpful in case of accidental deletions and overwrites. Now, the thing is that versioning is a wonderful feature. Okay. But it induces a problem for you. Not really a problem, but it adds on the amount of storage. And thus, it will add on the amount of cost of that storage. For example, if I go to the show mode, I just went to the show mode, every version of the object will take 798 bytes. So you multiply 798 by 5. Okay? So what I want to stress upon is that the fact is that every version of the object will take its own space. I repeat my statement. Every version of the object will take its own space. So the more version you put in, the more space it will occupy, the more storage cost you have to bear. So this thing you have to understand that the versioning will eventually bump up your storage cost. So the thing is, it's extremely important that you understand this fact that versioning is helpful to retrieve the data in case of accidental deletions or overwrites, but this will eventually shoot up your storage cost. The reason being, each version of the object will take its own space. Fine. Now, the thing is, let's understand the other. Okay, now there's a service called Lifecycle Management. We'll discuss that afterwards. You can bring down the cost of the storage in case of the versioning. We'll discuss it afterwards. Fine. So we understood the versioning. The other thing is the server access logging that we already discussed that. It will help you to capture the logs for the request being made to the S3 bucket. Fine. The next service that we discussed is the static website hosting. Now, you can host a complete static website, and the biggest advantage that you get is that you don't need any server-side technologies. See, as we start moving forward, we'll start using the concept called serverless technologies. What do you mean by serverless? Serverless means that you as the client, you as a customer, you as the administrator, you don't have to manage any servers. Okay. Now the thing is, we can just go to the static website hosting, and I just show you a small prototype that how you can enable a complete static website upon the S3 bucket. How you can host a complete static website upon the S3 bucket. Now, by default, it's disabled. I choose this option, use this bucket to host a website. Fine. Use this bucket to host a website. Now, in the index document, let's type in index.html. That's the default web page of my website. Then I'll type in error.html, which will be used if the external user or the internet user is trying to access any data or the web page which does not exist on my website. So index document is the home page. Error document is the error page where it's being returned when an error occurs. Fine. Now I click on save right now, and this enables the static website hosting. Now the thing is that I just create two different HTML documents. One index, other error, upload them to the S3 bucket, make them public, and that will finalize the static website hosting. So I open the text editor. Now the thing is that if you guys are using the Windows, you'll be using the Notepad. So I just create the index.html page, index.html page. Just type in hello world. Any text over here? This is the home page of the static website hosted upon the S3 or upon Amazon S3 bucket. Fine. This is a text. I will just do one thing. I will just change its color to make it more presentable. So let me just make it as orange, and that's it. Let me save it as index.html. Now, if using the Windows, you're gonna save it as the .txt, and then you just rename it as .html. So this is the index.html page. Click save. Okay. Then we just create a new document. Just type in. This is the error document. So type in 404 page not found. Please try again. So this page will appear if a user is finding some information or some page which does not exist on your website. So I change the font size and let me change its color. And that's it. I'm going to save it as my error.html. Right? It's error.html. So I click save. Fine. Now I will go to my bucket, go to the hide mode, click upload, add files, and I just go to my desktop. Let me drag and drop. Okay. So I think, yeah, I just drag and drop these two different documents. Click upload. Uploaded. Now I would choose both these two different HTML documents. Click on actions and click on make public. Click make public once again. Done. Now this completes a simple static website hosting. I go to the properties, go to static website hosting, click on this link, and I can just get the access to the website. If I copy and paste this link for you, even you can browse it very well. And if I just give a / type some gibberish, press enter, and I can just get to the error page. Now I can very easily link this. I can link my website, this endpoint name with my own domain. For example, xyz.com. I can link this endpoint name with my own domain name, like xyz.com, using a service called Route53 that we'll discuss maybe the next week. Okay, so this is how you just host a static website upon the S3 bucket. Fine. This is a small prototype. Okay, so if you're a web developer, you can just easily use it to host a complete static website upon the S3 bucket. Fine. So that's about the thing. Object level logging, we'll not discuss that because it's a part of the CloudTrail. It's a separate service. Encryption. Now you can encrypt your entire bucket. Okay. But the thing is that if you want to encrypt your data, so from now onwards, if I encrypt this bucket, every object becomes encrypted. We use AES 256. This is a default encryption standard. It uses the server-side encryption. Amazon S3 uses its own encryption technology or the keys behind the scenes. Okay, you can use their own keys so that you don't have to create and maintain the keys on your own. You can make use of the KMS, the stands for Key Management Service. Now we'll discuss the KMS when once we discuss the EBS, okay, because KMS is a separate service. It helps you to create the keys on your own. You use this server-side encryption using the KMS managed keys. The KMS stands for Key Management Service. I can make use of this KMS key to encrypt my data. The KMS also uses the AES 256 encryption standard. So AES 256 is used to encrypt your data at rest. To encrypt the data at rest. At rest, which means that the data is being is saved and it's not moving anywhere. It is sitting over there on your bucket. It's at rest. So data at rest. So you encrypt that data at rest. So I can encrypt my data if I want, but as if now not do that, because the thing is that we'll discuss the encryption in detail once we discuss the EBS or the Elastic Block Store. Fine. Then we have tags. See, tag is a value that is being used for various reasons. First one is the documentation. The other one is that it's used for billing purpose. For example, I have multiple resources with the same tag. So in that case, it becomes easier for me to generate a report where I can just calculate the cost of all the resources incurred by all the services and resources which have the same tags. Okay, I can add a tag over here. The key value is name, and the key is name, and the value is, for example, project gamma. So this is being used for this bucket is one of the it's used in one of the projects, that's project gamma, and I have the instances, load balances with the same tag. Okay, click save. So a tag is just a key and a value pair. That's it. You can use the tags to track your cost against the projects or other criterias. Once we discuss the billing in detail, we will discuss all these options one by one. Transfer acceleration. Now this is a very important option. Transfer acceleration enables the fast, easy, and secure transfers of files to and from your S3 bucket. See, basically, it is used for the uploading the contents much faster. So I just discussed with you the scenario that how it's being used and why use it. It's a very important concept, and you can use this service if you have the data being pushed by multiple users from different sources. Okay, so let me just give you a kind of an example. So what happens is, let's imagine that this is your S3 bucket. Okay, let me just draw it again. Just give me a few seconds. So we have to just take an example as of now. So hang on one second. Yeah. So let's imagine one thing, that this is the S3 bucket. Okay. Now upon this bucket, you have hosted a complete static website. And you have the users from different parts of the globe uploading their images, which can vary from megabytes to even GBs. So let's imagine the kind of website you're running. The users from different parts of the globe. So let's suppose this bucket is in Mumbai region. And I have the users coming from, let's suppose, Africa. Users coming from Europe. Users coming from North America. Users coming from Middle East. Okay. They upload GBs of data every day to your bucket. Now the thing is that, for example, this user is from Europe. If he's trying to upload, for example, 2 GB of data or maybe 5 GB of data, so it will take a lot of time because there's a distance between the user and the bucket. Okay, so in any of the scenarios where there's a need for the users to upload a lot of content to the bucket from different locations, and you want to speed up the uploading process, in that case, you make use of this service or the feature that's called the transfer acceleration. What is that? That's the transfer acceleration. Now, what the claim is that it increases the upload speeds up to 300%. It increases the upload speeds, and it uses the edge locations for that. Okay, so I'll just give you a very small example. For example, this person from Europe is trying to upload 5 GB of content. Now, what they do is that they will start using these edge locations in Europe and different parts of the globe. So these are the edge locations. Now, behind the scenes, these edge locations, your data would go to these edge locations, and the edge locations will choose the best optimized network path for the data to be uploaded, the shortest route. Okay, so edge locations will speed up the uploading of the content. It speeds up the uploading of the content. Right? So this process is called the transfer acceleration, where the edge locations are used to speed up the uploading part or the uploading process, because the data goes through the series of edge locations to decide the best optimized network route or the path for the data to be uploaded. So it finds the shortest route. So it speeds up the uploading process. Okay, now this service is not free. This thing you have to understand. You have to pay a few cents per GB of the data being uploaded. Now the thing is that if I just go back to the this page, let's go back over there, and I click on the transfer acceleration, by default it's suspended. I click on enable and click save, and that's it. That's what you have to do to enable it. Now the thing is that you can just run a speed test. You just click on want to compare your data transfer speed by region. You click on this thing right now, and the thing is that it will just send a piece of data from your browser to the bucket and just give you the comparison that if you act as a user from Tokyo and the bucket and the data goes to the bucket, what's the difference that will show up if you upload the data with and without using the transfer acceleration. So you can just run a speed test against your bucket from different regions, and you will see that what's the difference or how much speed difference you will get. Okay, so this is about the stuff. You can run this speed test. Now, since I'm in India, so it will not make any difference. But if I go with San Francisco, Oregon, Dublin, Frankfurt, Tokyo, Seoul, Singapore, Sydney, it will make the difference. It will make a big difference. Okay, so as you can see that it is working behind the scenes to give you the speed test. Okay, so it is uploading a sample file to a CloudFront endpoint or to the edge location, and you will see that what's the difference. So because the bucket is in Mumbai and it's trying to upload the content, or I would say just giving you the test from San Francisco, you can say it says 69% faster. Okay, so the greater the distance between the user and the bucket, the more benefit that you'll get from this feature. Okay, so that's about this thing. Now let's go back to the same page. Fine. So these are the properties that we discussed. We discussed about the versioning, store access logging, static website hosting, encryption, tags, transfer acceleration. So we discussed about these things. Now, the next thing that I will discuss with you is the storage classes. Very, very important from the exam point of view and from the operations point of view. So I just sketch it for you. I'll just explain it to you one by one. Please pay attention because this is very, very important. A lot of concepts, they revolve around this storage classes. Okay. See, what are storage classes? I've explained this concept to you that whenever you put anything in the bucket, multiple copies of that object is being created and saved across multiple regions in the single region. I'm sorry, I repeat my statement. Whenever you upload something to this bucket, you just upload something to this bucket, by default, it creates multiple copies of the same object and store those copies across multiple AZs in a single region. Across multiple AZs in a single region. Now, the amount of redundancy that you get, is being determined by the storage classes. So, what do you mean by storage classes? I'm going to explain that concept. There are 6 to 7 different storage classes. I'm going to discuss every one of them one by one and help you understand their features and their advantages and downsides. So, what are storage classes? Why you need them? So, let's understand that. So, what are storage classes? Storage classes, first of all, decide two things. First one is the amount of redundancy and features. Okay. And because of that, every storage class has different price tag. The first storage class that I'll discuss with you right now is the following. The first storage class that I will discuss is the standard. Now, the standard storage class is the default one. So let's get started with this one. The first storage class is standard. So the standard is the default storage class. Fine. What are the features of it? The features are the following. First of all, this gives you the maximum amount of replications. So the data has been replicated multiple times. This is highly available. Okay, it gives you 99.99% of the availability. This is highly durable. So it gives you the 11 nines of the durability. It gives you 11 nines durability. Okay, so this will make the data more redundant in nature, highly available. You get real time. So let's draw it again. You get real time and fast access to data. Okay, so you get real-time and fast access to the data. This is one of the costliest options. Out there. Okay, now what's the use case? What is the use case of it? Why? So where are you going to use it? What's the use case? A use case is it's used to store critical data. Critical data. Okay, any data that's very important for you, and any data that's very critical for you. For example, your let's imagine your database data. It's very critical for you. Any data which is very critical for you, you don't want to lose it. It has to be accessed very fastly if you need that. So it's any data which you access frequently, and it's very critical for you. You're gonna upload that as the standard storage. Okay, so the standard storage class is default. It renders the maximum amount of applications to you. It's highly available, highly durable. It gives you the real time and the fast access to data. It is one of the costliest options, and it's used to store the mission critical data. Like for example, database data, which needs to be accessed frequently. Any data which is critical, very, very important, that needs to be accessed frequently. It needs to be accessed frequently. Then you go with the standard. Fine. The second storage class that we're going to discuss is standard infrequent access. Sometimes in the short form it is labeled as standard underscore IA. Okay, now what exactly this is all about, why you need it. See, the standard infrequent access storage class is the one which gives you the same amount of replications as you get with the standard. It gives the same amount of applications. It gives you same durability and availability. Okay, it gives you the same amount of durability and availability as you get with the standard. It is a cheaper option. It's a cheaper storage option. Okay, the question releases, it gives you same amount of applications, same durability and availability as the standard. Then why it's cheap? Because it has some downsides. The downsides are, what are the downsides? What are the downsides or restrictions? The downsides and the restrictions are the following. First one is that the minimum size of an object should be at least 128 kilobytes. Should be at least 128 kilobytes. Below that, it will not accept it. The minimum size of an object should be at least 128 kilobytes. You should keep the object for at least 30 days as standard. So you can't straight away upload any data as standard infrequent access. You have to keep it as. So the thing is that you upload the data as standard, and you have to give a gap of 30 days to change a storage class to standard infrequent access. So you can't straight away upload any data as standard infrequent access. You have to first upload it as standard. You have to first upload as standard, wait for 30 days, and then you can just convert it to the standard IA, standard infrequent access. And also, there's a retrieval fee. Okay, you have to pay a few cents per GB if you retrieve the data from the S3 bucket back to your local machine. Okay, so that's why it's used for the data that you access infrequently. Okay, there's a small retrieval fee. Storage wise, it is cheaper, but if you retrieve the data, you have to pay a few cents extra per GB. Fine. So these are the three main downsides. First of all, the minimum size of an object should be at least 128 kilobytes. Below that, it will not accept it. You have to keep the object for at least 30 days as standard before you transition it as a standard infrequent access storage class. And there's a retrieval fee imposed upon you. That's the reason it's used for the infrequent access storage data. So what's the use case? Any data that you access infrequently. So the thing is that it's used for the data that you access infrequently. Okay, any data that you access infrequently, for example, archive data. Okay, archive data. So you don't access it frequently. In that case, you can save it as the infrequent access storage class. You save it as the infrequent access storage class. So I can just discuss this once again. The standard infrequent access storage class, in the short form, we label it as standard IA. It gives you the same amount of applications, same amount of durability and availability as you will get with the standard. It's a cheaper storage option as compared to standard, with certain downsides and restrictions. First of all, the minimum size of an object should be at least 128 kilobytes. You should keep the object as standard for at least 30 days before you can change it to the standard infrequent access storage class object. There's a small retrieval fee imposed upon you. So hence, you use that for that data that you don't access frequently, or the data that you access infrequently, that you don't access frequently. Example, the archive data. Fine. So that's the standard infrequent access storage class. The third storage class that we're going to discuss is intelligent tiering. Now this is a new storage class, very interesting. Now what happens in the intelligent tiering is that it saves the data into two formats. One is frequent access, and the second one is infrequent access. What happens is that any data, for example, this is a piece of object X. This is an object. You upload it to the S3 bucket. Now, it's not being accessed for 30 days. If it's not being accessed for 30 days, so one thing before I can come to the process, infrequent access is cheaper as compared to frequent access category. It's a cheaper option. So it's a cheaper option. Now, if you don't access the data, so first of all, any data that you put would be termed as frequent access data. But if you don't access that data for 30 days, it's being transitioned to the infrequent access category, which is a cheaper option. Any data that you don't access for 30 days, and that data is being saved as a frequent access in terms of frequent access storage, it's being transitioned to the infrequent access category, which is a cheaper option. And as soon as you access it, then it will bring it back to the frequent access storage category. Frequent access storage category. Okay. So the thing is that I repeat this entire process. Any data that you put in will be put as will be labeled as the frequent access. If that data is not being accessed for 30 days, then it's being transitioned to the infrequent access category, which is a cheaper option. But as far as it's being accessed, it's been put back to the frequent access class. Okay. Now, this is helpful in the cases. So what's the use case? You will use this concept called intelligent tiering, where you cannot anticipate the access patterns. So if you're not able to guess that what should be the access patterns, you leave it to the intelligent tiering and decide by itself that, okay, if it's not being accessed for 1 month, it's better that you just put that in the infrequent access class or category and bring down the cost of that storage. Okay. So if you don't have any understanding exactly that how frequently you will access the data, you put that as the intelligent tiering. Okay. There's a new storage class that they have come up with. Fine. The fourth storage class is called one zone IA. Now, as the name implies, one zone. This means that your data is being saved and replicated in only one availability zone of that region. I repeat my statement. So what do you mean by that? Data is stored and replicated in only one AZ. So data is being stored and replicated in one AZ only. That's it. Okay, it's being stored and replicated in one AZ. Okay, so this means this is less redundant. This is less durable. This is less available. And you may lose the data in case of an AZ goes down. So it is prone to an AZ failure. If an AZ goes down, your entire data has been lost. This is a very cheap, it's a cheaper option in terms of storage, but you lose a lot of things because the data is being replicated only in one AZ. It's less redundant, less durable, less available. If an AZ goes down, your entire data has been lost. You can't get it back. The question really is then why are you going to use it? It's cheaper in the terms of storage. And what's the use case? It's used to store secondary backups. Backups of the backups. Any data which is less critical data, it's a backup of the backups. So if you lose the secondary backups, you don't lose anything, because you may have the copy of that backup stored somewhere in some other bucket. It's used for the secondary backups only. Any data which is very less important for you. Okay, so use that as the one zone IA. Fine. For example, it's used for cross-region application. Let's suppose that you have one bucket. You have one bucket, which is your main bucket. For that, the storage class is standard. Now you duplicate your entire data. You duplicate your objects and save them in secondary bucket. For that, you can use the following storage class, that is one zone IA. Okay, you can use that. Fine. So in that case, if your secondary bucket objects get deleted, that's fine. You can retrieve that from the standard. So it's used for storing the secondary backups, because this is your secondary backup. Fine. So we have discussed the 4 options. Right. The 5th option we'll discuss is Glacier. A Glacier is the cheapest option in terms of storage. Used for archiving. For example, is used to store the compliance data. Okay. And it's used for data that you don't access frequently. Why? Because there's a retrieval fee. And also, the retrieval time is very high. What I mean by retrieval time is very high? This means, for example, if I have this bucket, and this is my machine, this is my PC. If I store 1 GB of data as Glacier storage, I can do it very well. But if I want to retrieve the same data back to my machine, just to initiate this process of retrieving, it can take anywhere between 1 to 4 hours for that 1 GB of data process to initiate the process to retrieve that 1 GB of data. Now, optionally, you can expedite it. You can expedite this process, but you have to pay for that. you have to pay for this expediting. So if you expedite this process, then you have to pay for that. So the retrieval time is extremely high. This is the biggest disadvantage of using Glacier. But in terms of storage, it is the cheapest storage out there. Dirt cheap, very, very cheap. So it's used for storing the archive data, compliance data that you don't access for months or even years. Any data that you don't access for months or even years, you store that as Glacier. But if you access the data very frequently, it's better that you go with other options out there. For example, OneZone.ia. If you want to bring down the cost of the storage, because the retrieval fee is there and the retrieval time is very, very high, because it's very slow and sluggish in performance. Fine. So these are the 5 main storage classes that are out there. There are 2 main storage classes like RRS, reduced redundancy storage. It's being obliterated. There's a Glacier Deep Archive. It's a new storage class, not being used so much. So these are the 5 main storage classes that you will access and you will use in the business environment. Okay. So these are the storage classes. Now the question really is that how you access them. See, the thing is that if you just go to the overview, you will see that by default on the right hand side there are already storage classes. If you see my cursor on the extreme right hand side on this right column, it says storage class. You can see these storage classes. By default, if you don't specify the storage class of any object, it takes as standard. Let's imagine if I click on upload, I click on add files. I can choose any of the files right now. Click next. Click next. From here, I can change the storage class, for example, to intelligent tiering. Click on next. Click upload. So you will see that this particular object, this screenshot, is being uploaded as intelligent tiering storage class. Also, I can change the storage class of the existing object. For example, I can choose this object, which is being uploaded as standard. If I go back right now, this object is uploaded as standard. Okay, so I can choose the object, go to actions, and click on change storage class. I can change it to OneZone.ia. Click save. Click change once again. So as you can see that I've changed the storage class of the existing object. So in that case, from now onwards, the price and the billing applies to depending upon the storage class that you have chosen. Depending upon the storage class that you have chosen. Fine. Okay. So that's how you go about doing it. Now there are 2 main options that I discussed with you. One under the management is the life cycle and the replication, and that would be the end of the conversation. Life cycle means that you configure the life cycle of the bucket. You change the storage classes of the bucket. See, one thing if you can recall, I discussed about the versioning, right? What's the versioning? Versioning means you can save multiple versions of the same object. It will help you to store your objects or retrieve your objects in case of accidental deletions and overrides. Okay. Now the thing is that versioning comes with a downside that it will increase your storage cost. So the thing is that there are 2 types of versions. One is the current version, or I would say the latest version. And all other versions before that are the previous versions. Okay. Now you can make use of lifecycle management to change the storage classes of these versions, or you transition them to for example, Glacier, or for example, you can delete them after a few days. For example, I can say change the storage class from standard to standard underscore IA after 30 days. After 60 days, archive that to the Glacier. Okay, we can just apply these rules over there. Let me show you. I go to the life cycle and click on add life cycle rule. I name this rule as test life cycle rule and click on next. Now, I can apply this to a prefix, but I will just apply that to all the objects. Click on next over here. Now it will immediately ask you that do you want to apply that to the current version, the latest version, and the previous versions. I'll choose both. I just go with both the current and the previous versions of the objects. For the current versions of the objects, I click on add transition. For example, I will say that by default, I upload the object as standard. After 30 days, you can transition those objects to that are the current versions from standard to standard IA after 30 days. It should be at least 30 days. If I just make it as 29, I will get this error message. I will get this error message. So there should be a gap of 30 days between standard and standard IA. Then I can add one more transition for the current versions of the objects. They can be transitioned to Glacier after 60 days. Or they can be, for example, they can be transitioned to one zone I after 60 days. Then after 90 days, they can be archived to Glacier. I can just go with these kind of transitions if I want. Similarly, I can apply the same transitions to the previous versions of the objects. I click on add transitions. I can say for the previous versions, I archive to the Glacier after, let's suppose, 150 days. So any object that becomes previous version after 150 days, or let's make it as 60 days. After 2 months of becoming the previous version, that object will be archived to Glacier after 60 days. I hit next. I can also configure the expiration. So I can say that, okay, I apply the expiration on the current and the previous versions. For example, after 150 days, all the current versions of the objects will be deleted. After 120 days, all the previous versions of the objects will be deleted from S3 bucket automatically. Click on next, click on save. So that's how I can apply the transitions and deletions or the expirations on the different versions of the objects in my S3 bucket. Okay, that's the life cycle. The last thing I'll discuss with you is the replication. Now, this thing we discussed yesterday. Now, if let me just give you the example once again. What is cross-region replication? So, cross-region replication means that you can just replicate your objects in different S3 buckets across different regions. They will help you in case of data migration and disaster recovery. So let's take an example right now. So let's take that example that I have 2 buckets. This bucket is in Mumbai, and this bucket is in North California. Fine. These are 2 different buckets. Now, this is my primary / source bucket, and this is my secondary / destination bucket. Okay. Now, I want the ability that if I put any data X in the source bucket, a copy of it gets generated and saved in my destination bucket. This process is called as cross-region replication. Now, in order for this thing to happen, there are two things you need. First one is that you have to enable the versioning on both the buckets. So you have to enable the versioning on both the buckets, and also you have to apply an IAM role to the source bucket. Okay. Now the question really is this: how this will help you? First of all, it will help you in case of disaster recovery. See, for example, if Mumbai goes down for some reason, I can still retrieve my data from North California. Okay, so it's a very effective strategy in case of disaster recovery. Okay, so I'll just show you one example and show you that how exactly this is being implemented. So let's go back to the S3 dashboard. I go to the bucket dashboard right now, and if I show you right now, this is the bucket project Gamma S3 Mumbai. I create another bucket, project Gamma S3 CAL, because this bucket will be created in North California. Okay, I click next. Click next. Uncheck this option so that I can just unblock the public access, because this data will go through the backend network. I don't want any kind of restrictions in that case. Click on next. Click create bucket. Okay, so this Mumbai is my source bucket and California is my target or the destination bucket. I go to so I already have the versioning enabled on the source bucket. I go to the secondary bucket, go to the properties, and enable the versioning. So you have to make sure that the versioning is enabled on both the buckets, which I did. Okay, then I go to my source bucket, go to the management, go to the application, click on add rule. I want to replicate the entire bucket. Click next. I choose my target bucket, which is my California bucket. Then I already have the version enabled, I think so. Okay, let me just do that once again. Okay, then I can change the storage class of the replicated objects. For my source bucket, I will make the default storage class as standard. For the duplicate data, I will make it as 109A to bring down the cost of my storage. I can change the object ownership to destination bucket owner if this bucket is being shared across multiple accounts. But as of now, it's only in the one account. So click on next over here. I will just choose this thing, create new role. I don't have to create any role. I choose this option, create new role, assign a name to it, test, demo. That's it, role. CRR. So I choose create new role, assign a name to it. It will automatically create a role by itself. Click next, click save. Done. Cross-region replication updated successfully. Now this doesn't apply to the existing objects. Any object that I put in my Mumbai bucket, which is my source bucket, a copy of that object will automatically show up in my destination bucket or the secondary bucket, which is my California bucket. Let me show you. I go to my source bucket, the Mumbai bucket, and I just add, for example, let's go to my downloads. So let me upload this image. Click upload. Done. I just uploaded this image. I go to my this target bucket, secondary bucket, hit refresh, and you see that it automatically shows up. Okay, so any new object any new object from now onwards, if I put that object in the source bucket, a copy of that object will be created and saved in my destination or the target bucket. That being said, this completes the entire conversation on the S3. I thank you for your time and patience. So thank you so much. This is all about the features and the services that we were supposed to discuss on the S3.